Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode 97 of the Office Hours podcast. We're happy to welcome back Mo. Last time we finished on some topic that we said is going to take another hour to talk about. I don't know if we're necessarily going to be talking about it today, but in any case, we'll probably be talking about something interesting. So without further ado, let's get on with it.
Get on with it, right? But did you have some time to think about it, or no?
I'm trying to remember. It was something about like being an ethical business owner or like sharing your ideas with the business and something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Did you
Uh,
give it some thought?
a little bit. I was kind of thinking a little bit about it when I was like cutting the video and audio before publishing it, but I don't think I had any kind of big thoughts or big epiphanies there. Um, so yeah, not really.
Not really. Okay, fair enough. I mean, I think I did give you some thought actually, and then I was thinking. I mean, if I get to, I guess I shared a little bit of this last week, and I was thinking to myself that if I actually happen to be like in a position to own a company or something, um, that has like I have employees and they have an idea, I would encourage this kind of things. I know that there is you mentioned something about maybe the idea might tank the company or like something, but I think any any idea can tank the company. It's not because it's coming from the employee that is tanking the company. I feel like it's a way to give people a sense of ownership and a sense of um, belonging in a way, because in the end, you're not just a worker, you know. You should feel, I mean, you are kind of because you get paid for what you do, but you should feel some kind of like you should your contribution should be valued. You should feel like your contribution is indeed welcomed and valued. You don't
Did you
think
hear that
so?
Oracle fired 30,000 people this morning?
That's a different case, you know. But
I
yeah,
think what you're saying might work if it's like a company of like 5 people, like maybe 10 people. Once it starts growing past a certain size, I would say it would be really hard to maintain that kind of ethos.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, you're right. But also, when I'm saying this, I'm not saying like, I mean, I don't expect that. Even if you have a company of 10,000 or 50,000 people, I don't think all 50,000 people have an idea. Some people generally would not care, and this is
Yeah.
fine. It's just the few people that care should also have their voices heard. This is what I'm trying to say. And like, it's not
Yeah,
because you
that's
have an
that's
idea
that's
that
true.
we would
That's
work on it.
true.
It's just feel listened to, you know, because you never know um, what the next good thing would be, you know, what the next really good idea would come from.
It's true, but I think you have to remember about like all the politics and stuff. And it's like once it gets to a certain size, like you can't address all ideas. Like even like you have like 3 people with really good ideas, maybe you only have potential to implement just one, right? And you have to pick.
Yeah, or none.
Somebody's inevitably gonna get pissed and whatever, or they'll be like, oh, I
Hmm.
think my idea is better, I'm gonna try to sabotage that guy or whatever. Then, like, ideally it's like, oh yeah, we have like all these great people with their
Mhm,
great ideas and we
mhm,
implement all of those ideas and they bring the
mhm,
company a ton of money,
mhm,
right? But like maybe if you're like 5 people and you're like constantly working together and you're just like building something and you're bouncing things off of one another. But like in a huge corporate structure, it's like you have an idea, but then your manager has to align with his manager and his VP and his director in order, like, there's like so much. You're throwing what's the word I'm looking for? You're basically throwing surprises into like something that's well oiled, and like now you're supposed to start doing different things. So it would require like a lot of alignment and a lot of these things. And people are too lazy. They're like, oh, there's so much effort to get all of that organized. So I don't know. I
Well,
think size really matters. Like if you're a company of 5 and you're CEO and you know everybody
Mhm,
personally and you talk to them every day and you have a vision of how you want to do things,
mhm.
yes, but like if you look at like the line worker and between you as a CEO and him, there's like 5 layers of management. Keeping that alignment on what's good for the company is also really difficult, I would think, because
But
you know.
listen, let's play. I don't know if this is this is not whatever advocate this is. I don't think this is. Anyway, you know, as the company grows, I mean, you've been part of a startup, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Sometimes when you join a startup, they say, let's say, for example, you could have like 20 people at the company, everybody, like it feels close knitted, like everyone is into everyone's business a little bit. And as the company grows, they continue to try to keep the culture that they started with, like,
Hmm.
and once you get to like maybe 500 people or like,
I
1,000
think
or
it starts
whatever,
even sooner than that. I don't
you
think at the
start,
size of 500 people, the CEO would be personally hiring.
no,
Like
no,
I
not,
think that
mhm,
basically, in my view, like as soon as you end up with having like an HR department,
mhm,
at that
that's it.
point, you're like once you start delegating hiring to somebody else, that's it. Because now there's a game of broken telephone in terms of you conveying what your vision is, in terms of your desire for the kind of people they hire. Uh, so it starts getting out of alignment at that
Yeah,
point.
true. But what I was getting at is that they still try to keep this company culture, like, they still do like activities or like, try to bring people together in a way. And you have this type of meetings that they call all hands or something like this. And it's
Yeah,
like to have everybody in the same space and to talk about how the
yeah.
company is going and stuff like
That's
this.
like I feel like that is like HR's, like every HR that I've seen, pretty much every HR that I've seen as a department and people in it, they like to weasel their way into like everything the company is doing. Like even though they're supposed to be there for like hiring, firing, and managing payroll, they start having all these
Mhm,
initiatives and
mhm,
groups and resource groups and this and that and like all hands meetings and like
mhm,
they're
mhm.
just like starting to kind of do and like they are not always aligned with the founders. They kind of,
You
from
don't
what
think
I've
so?
observed anecdotally, they kind of play their own game at like clawing out organizational power.
So you don't think
So
these ideas are from the CEOs most times? You think it's HR
I think
business?
that they may kind of loop the CEO in and he might think it's a good idea. But I mean, okay, obviously there's CEOs who will have a certain, understanding of things that would align with what HR normally wants.
Mhm.
But like if you're starting a technical startup with like a bunch of nerds, they're going to be very different from what like classic nerds, not like 2025 nerds, which that term's been watered down so much you don't even know what it means anymore. But I
Wait,
would say
wait,
like
wait. Oh, hold on, Vasili.
2004 nerds, 2004
Hold on,
nerds,
hold
and
on.
HR, they're like oil
Mhm.
and water. They do not
Uh-huh.
go together. So whatever these initiatives are, I'm pretty certain, you know, they're not coming from like the technical CEOs and CTOs and stuff like that.
What is the difference between 2025 nerds and 2004 nerds?
I don't know. It just feels different. It
Why?
just
Why?
feels. I think the like I talked about a little bit. I think the motivations have changed,
For
like
what?
the
To be a
for being
nerd?
in the industry in general.
Oh, being in the industry or being a nerd?
Well, I think these days you kind of have to pass as a nerd almost
To be in this industry?
to be in the industry.
I mean,
But it's
well.
kind of like Temu nerd, you know. It's the Kmart nerd. It's not the authentic thing. It's a knockoff. It's a knockoff nerd. It's before, I
Mhm,
guess, back in the days of like late 90s, early 2000s,
mhm,
at least for me, maybe in Western country it started like different time frame, but when the internet came over to us, it was like early 2000s, late 90s, right? So prior to that, being a nerd was even more of a difficult pursuit. It was even a smaller kind of group because
mhm.
you have to have certain interests, you have to have access to people with same interests, which was very difficult. And like back in those days, like 1 in 1,000 people had a computer, right? So like it was a very selective group, and it was a refuge for all the people with like lack of social skills and physical skills and looks and whatnot. Like you're basically like you knew your group of people. Like if you were into computers, you did not dunk and couldn't talk to girls. It's either D&D or computers or something in that entire domain.
Fair enough. Fair
Nobody
enough.
went into computers because they said, "Oh, I'm gonna be a Silicon Valley CEO and gonna make $1 billion." That was not a thing. You know, so the financial aspect of the motivation at in those days was not there, at least for me, the way that I see it. It's
You
just
know
not a
why?
thing.
Well, the reason
It,
why I'm questioning this part is because if you watch the show Silicon Valley, even Silicon
yeah,
Valley, you know the TV show, right?
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, they had the idea, the motive to make money, from there.
They had the motive
I
to make money because they are part of that Silicon Valley culture that did not exist. It did not exist as prominently at the time. Obviously, like Microsoft existed and Apple existed, but they weren't household names in the way
Microsoft.
that Microsoft maybe, but specifically like top tier people at Microsoft. Like if you were not near tech sector, you probably didn't really know who the main guy. Like, okay, you may know Steve Jobs because of his charismatic
Yeah,
persona,
fair
but
enough.
there's like one Steve Jobs. Now everybody thinks themselves a Steve Jobs after a fashion, right? But like, how many people knew who like Wozniak was? And he
People
was
who know
he was basically
Microsoft.
the guy who created no, like Wozniak, the second guy at Apple. See,
Oh,
exactly. So you were nerd for the love of the game. You loved computers and you loved technology and you were doing it for
mm,
the love of the game. It was not about money. Now everyone's like, oh shit, 250K a year, and I just press buttons all day. Give me some of that. But then you kind of have to be part of the club, and you kind of have to have some aspects of nerddom to fit in and pass in a sense. But even that is basically on the way out.
yeah,
And
fair enough.
so I would say that the current generation of nerds is very like watered down compared to, at least in my personal view. I know that somebody may take offense to that, but I don't care.
I mean, no, I don't. I mean, I think it's just an opinion. It's not like there is no nedometer or something like this to know like how nerdy are you. I I was just asking because it was interesting because I was thinking you were going to say maybe it's a generation thing because in those days like you were saying computers was not even a common thing. It's
Hmm.
you had computers for specific purpose. Like there's not a lot you could even do with it. I mean, that I know of. But
Yeah.
now it's not because you don't necessarily have to be a computer nerd to be a nerd. Like
Yeah, you
you
don't
could
need to
be,
know as much to operate one. Even the
yeah,
word
and
operate doesn't, you don't operate a computer anymore. You just use it, like, you
fair
know.
enough. Yeah, yeah, and
You know how they have like heavy machinery operator. It's not like an excavator driver, it's a heavy machinery operator because it's a very specific kind of process. You can't
mhm,
just sit in it and do it. You have to be specifically trained for it, right?
yeah.
To operate heavy machinery, you have to be specifically trained for it. But like, you know, when it comes to computers, they're like, I don't know, they're like scooters. You stand on one, you press a button, and you go. There's no operating required in a sense
Do you know how to
because
use a
it's been
scooter?
so democratized. Sorry, what was that?
Do you know how to use a scooter?
Yeah, you stand on it, and there's a little button. You press it, and it goes forward, and then you kind of steer a little bit. There's really not that much to it.
But have you tried it?
Yeah. We have
Oh,
like these rentals around Stanley Park here, so we took one for a spin like a year ago.
oh, you know what? I think I should be more open-minded to try stuff like this. I don't think I ever
It's
want to
fun.
try. Is it? Is it?
Yeah, no,
What?
it's fun. I mean, it takes you places. You go fast. You don't have to sweat and push pedals for half an hour to get from point
Mm.
A to point B.
What about the accidents? What if you fall?
Uh, that's a risk I guess you're willing to take. In fact, they make you sign a waiver. So
You see, I mean, I'm asking this. This is funny because I remember one time someone was asking me about going to skiing.
mm.
Is
Yeah,
that's
they
the
make you
one that
sign a
you?
waiver too.
Yeah.
Well, they don't make you
Ah.
sign it, but like on the back of your ticket, in like bold red and yellow letters, it says all the horrible things you agree to not to basically not sue them for if you go skiing.
No. Well, maybe in another time. In another time.
Have you
Anyway,
have you have you ever tried skiing or snowboarding?
no, I don't.
No.
I mean, no. I play football, and I know
Fair
football
enough.
is also dangerous. But this kind of skiing thing, I don't think I would. I'm not that open-minded yet,
Mo-
but
you,
I would like to
you,
try.
you have to go skiing because otherwise they're gonna keep writing these ridiculous articles that says skiing and snowboarding is entirely too white. You know.
Listen, you can change my mind. Maybe if you invite me, I'll come. If you if you come to this side of the country, yeah, sure, invite me, I'll come. But it's not my first choice of activity. It's not
Fair
something I
enough.
look forward to. But yeah, I could come for the vibes. Anyway, I wanted to ask you again. Like, I think earlier you said like you've been involved in startups, and I
Hmm.
wanted to ask you what kind of startup. Like, did you join the startup, or you actually have your own startup? Like,
A little bit of both. Like when I just even before I graduated, I kind of got pulled into a company. I don't think that they were operating as a startup at the time. It was like a consulting firm, which was basically like working with some specific Microsoft technology that they were customizing for like corporate clients. And then after a few years, the people who ran it decided to try a few things. So they like went through two or three different things that didn't quite work, but it was kind of very fast to realize that that's not really gonna be it's like nothing's gonna happen out of it. And then I think the fourth one was the company that basically still operates to this day, which is that the whole fleet tracking with GPS, which was a fairly new thing back in those days.
but it's still there
It's
today.
still operating right now. Yeah, they've expanded quite a bit. They're like expanded into Latin America and like
Oh,
so
nice.
they're doing well.
So
Um,
did you, I think, did you learn about starting a startup, how to like manage a startup and stuff like?
I didn't really pay attention a lot to that kind of stuff. Very tangentially, like I wasn't really focusing on it because I don't think I had it in my head the thought that I might want to start a startup one day. Like I would not say that I'm particularly entrepreneurial. Like I was always more interested in like the technical aspects of things. Like solving technical problems was more interesting to me than solving all the rest of it.
Hmm. But yeah, I think even if at that level, you still have to, there is a difference between working in a startup at this level to solve like technical problems when you start from scratch because you have to have a
Hmm.
lot of experience to be able to make decisions that is
Right.
scalable and maintainable and stuff like this. I guess maybe on the technical side of it, like my question is like
Hmm.
these days, I was thinking about how a lot of people are coming up with different startup ideas and like I think now even with the introduction of AI tools and stuff like this, there's a lot of new software and new companies coming up. And I was curious to know, like, do you think the process of starting and maintaining a startup um, has it changed? Or like what, how do you see it these days? Like, because I
I
know about
mm,
like certain programs, like incubator programs and stuff like this. But I also know like nowadays you could just build an app and put it in a Play Store or like Apple Store or whatever, or a web app somewhere and just market it on your own. And you don't
mhm.
even need to have like that many people working. I don't know. Like, how do you see this
Uh,
market? Is this?
it's a good question. I haven't really thought about it that much, but from kind of the top of my head, I would say like the AI democratized it even further, right? Because before, if like usually what happened, like a lot of these kind of we used to have this thing called what was it called? The startup days or something like that. It was basically like a multi-day conference where a bunch of people came around and they pitched ideas, and they also had like developers, and they were basically trying to like somebody with a business idea who has no proficiency with coding would try to pitch that idea and find somebody to help them implement it and kind of run with it. And they had like a panel of judges. And the whole thing was kind of silly because it was like the ideas themselves, like there was like out of however many that were pitched, only like one or two, to me at least, had any kind of merit or originality. The rest were all like, oh, I call it LinkedIn for dogs. You know, it's like, oh, there's Facebook and there's doctors, so let's make Facebook for doctors. I think I already told you this story. It's like Facebook for doctors already exists. It's called Facebook. Goodbye. So a lot of those startup ideas were kind of trying to like pick a very narrow niche
Mhm.
for some permutation of industries and kind of call it a day. And yeah, that was basically entirely useless. But I think these days, with the advent of AI, as a business person, you may not even, I guess, depending on the complexity of business, but you may not even need a technical co-founder to at least throw something at the wall to see what sticks. You can like vibe code a prototype in like a couple of weeks to see if you get your first paying customer, right? Because before, you have to pitch the idea, you have to find people to execute it, you have to like figure out what the MVP is, and you have to actually spend like a few months developing it, and all of that cost a lot of money, like tens of thousands of dollars. It's like in Vancouver, the startup scene was kind of sad compared to like Silicon Valley. Like, oh, the incubator will give you $10,000, and it's like, what the fuck are you gonna do with $10,000? You can like hire a guy for a month, maybe, or 2 months, or two guys for a month.
I
Like
thought,
that,
yeah. Is that
huh?
how much money they used to? Is that how much money you get from incubator?
In like 2008, 2010, I think that was kind of like the very first amount of money you would get from like a local venture thing was in couple of tens of thousands. So everyone, like, after pitching here and saying, "Oh yeah, we can give you $10,000," like 90% of people who really wanted to pursue it would immediately fuck off to California and seek like 200K, 150K seed round from some venture capitalist over there, because there was just like literally no point. In Canada, it would take forever. Everyone would just constantly be, sorting out the paperwork, and in the end, you get something that can carry you for like a couple of weeks, and then you're on your own. So I don't know, because like when we were building a thing, we were looking tangentially for people with money, and we had like several meetings, and eventually we decided to kind of bootstrap it, because you were there's like really no point in giving up any kind of equity for $10,000. Like it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So whenever people hear, I don't know about now, it might have changed, although I doubt it, but in those days, whenever people were saying like, oh, Canada and like Vancouver startup scene is going to be competing with Silicon Valley, I'd be like, yeah, right, come on, give me a break. All the money, like there's like hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars are out there, and there's like maybe millions worth of money out here, and like no wonder not much is happening. Like we only
And you
have like a
say,
handful of Canadian technology companies that like made a really big impact, and I don't even know like their origin story in terms of how they got their funding. Because a lot of even Canadian companies, I bet, were getting funding from US.
what? Canadian company getting funded from the US?
Well, like Shopify or something like that. They're like in Canada, right? But I think, right? Is Shopify is a Canadian company, I think.
It
Is
is a
it not?
Canadian company. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, yeah.
Canadian company.
So I don't know. Like I don't know. I haven't looked. But I imagine that I don't know. I'd have to take a look. I don't want to say things that are potentially not true. I would imagine that they probably had their venture funding partially coming from the States. I doubt that they were fully funded in Canada originally.
Well,
I could be wrong.
so at what point do you have your product that you think, oh, now I can look for investors? At what point do you get to this level?
Well, you need to understand what you need investors for. Like usually you need investors to expand aggressively, right? Like if you know you have a market fit, you've like executed on your MVP, you have some kind of initial offering, people are buying your thing, and now you need to market it super aggressively to capture like a big share of the market and start making like money. And usually that type of marketing, like very aggressive marketing, is quite expensive. And if you need to start expanding on features, you need to hire a lot of staff. Like headcount is the most expensive thing at the end of the day for a startup. Like just hiring competent people is expensive and getting more expensive. And you like, you know, if you're a solo developer and you built a product and you're working on it yourself and you're getting clients, like it really depends, I think, on what your goal is. Like if you want to become next Facebook or whatever, you need a lot of money to aggressively promote it out of every street corner, you know. If you're building it for your own personal cash flow and it's making you a couple $100,000 a year, like again, speaking of a whole, you know, ethical founder thing, like do you really need to take it that much further and sell your soul for it, or are you happy just doing it and kind of enjoying your life?
Hmm. Um, okay, so there is a certain mindset that comes with like when you every tech people that I have met that I know that have had the idea of like building a product. I think one of the things that comes to mind first as the main challenge is like, oh, how do you compete? Like, how do you get into the market?
Mm-hmm.
And there are in every group that comes together to do this type of project, there is this one guy who happens to know where to make money from. Like, oh yeah, like we can get these people to invest. So I guess my first that's why I'm asking you about like at what point do you start thinking of investment? Because you could have a good product
Mm-hmm.
and maybe you actually have a real market for this product, but you don't know how to sell the product. You don't know what does it even mean to market. Like, what does that even mean? Like, does it mean like you? I guess like we have some marketing companies like Google and whatnot these days. But at what point do you start to find people to put money in your company? Like, and for what? Because you can do marketing on your own too, because we have like I think social media now helps with any form of marketing that you want to do. Whatever
Right,
marketing you're
but
going to
like
do is
I
probably
think
going to be
the
better.
biggest problem with, not the problem, but like the biggest side effect of uh, democratizing the means of production, so to speak, is now again like when I was saying about, you know, in the 90s,
Mm,
one in many thousands of people had a computer. So you were only competing with like 5 people in your city or something like that, right? Now
Hmm.
you literally, the more people are given access to do things like with Claude and whatever ChatGPT, whatever coding thing they have, you're now competing for eyeballs and attention with all of the people who also want to put out their products out there. And these days, the way the promotion of things is shaken up to be is, whoever spends more cleverly on your ads and placement and all these things is going to get more attention and more like conversions is different, right? Like you actually have to be good at selling to improve your conversions out of the set of eyeballs that you can get with your marketing budget. How many of them are going to convert is really going to depend on how good your sales team is. So there's some variability there. But first you have to get those eyeballs, because like, why should I see this guy's advertisement instead of that guy's advertisement, right? Oh, well, that guy paid more, so he gets better slots and he gets better targeting. He can do whatever. So because you can certainly try to promote by yourself, you're also competing with like hundreds of thousands of people doing the same thing, right? So the differentiator here, I think a lot of people think like, oh, if you build it, they will come. But now there's just so many people building. People have to make a choice about where they're gonna like which product they're gonna end up utilizing, because there's just so much choice. There's so much choice that why should they pick you, right?
Hmm.
And I think at that point, if you're serious about it and if you understand your market fit and you understand like your total market, like in terms of how many people will our thing actually help with whatever they're looking for, like, maybe there's only like, I don't know, 10 people in this town who need something like this. So are you going to spend $1 million showing your ads to everybody who don't need it, trying to convince them that they do? You could try that. you know
Okay.
um
So, um, help me here. What I'm learning from you now, or from this conversation, is that what you really need investors for is to grow the company. Not
aggressively
necessarily,
aggressively
not
if you want to grow
necessarily,
aggressively, yeah.
not necessarily to build the company. Because, um, say for example, let me paint a picture for you. Let's
Hmm.
say you have an idea for a solution. Let's say there is a problem. What kind of solution? Let's say you decided to build a recipe software, to help chefs.
Hmm.
I mean, if anybody decides to use this idea, I guess, I don't know if it's a good idea, like a recipes management, whatever application.
Right. That's a good example. Like, why not?
Right. And then um you as a technical person, you crack all the hours to build out this thing. And maybe you were just building for yourself, right? Or for your friends.
Right.
Now, do you still need to find investors? Let's say at the end of the day, you already built it out. You're already using it for yourself, or maybe your
Right.
friends are
Right.
using it. Do you still go to find investors at this point? And what do you do with these investors now? Like if someone comes to you to say like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you what, $1 million or five
Something like
hundred
that, yeah.
thousand For what? Do you take the money for what? Because the app is built.
Well, you have to
Eh,
tell the investors what you need the money for, otherwise they're not going to give it to you.
there are two parts to this question, right? Like, let's say someone comes to you. This
Hmm.
is one. Second thing is, if you are actually looking for someone, let's say finally you realize that, okay, maybe I want to expand the company, I want to build a company around this app,
Hmm.
and then actually hire people and like, build something or maybe build other products along the line because
Well,
you don't
yeah,
have
like
to.
if you want to build it up, you would probably need marketing, right? You would need sales. You
How
would
do you,
need technical people to fix the issues that people find or whatever, your customers. So like you will need headcount, and like in a technical company, every person is going to cost you like at least $100K a year, right? So if somebody gives you $500,000, that's like 5 people for a year. And that's not including like renting an office or anything like that. So it's probably even like 4 people in an office for a year. Like that's, you have a year to do something with all of that, to actually start recouping that money and making money back.
Okay, so if you are looking for, so if sometimes I think a while ago I was listening to the CEO of Uber saying something about how they were not making profit. And this is where I'm getting to, like, with my question, like, even if you are looking for people to invest in your company, first question is, where do you find them? Do you find like someone in your family to give you money, or there is
You
actually like
could,
some?
you could. There's I don't know about Canada, but in the US, there's like a whole class of like friends and family investors in terms of like for tax purposes and like securities rules. Like you can
Mm,
solicit money from friends and family to be investors in your company, and then they get shares and they get a certain degree of control. Like you could do that.
is there like a government initiative for stuff like this?
There's some. Uh,
Reliable one.
Say again.
Reliable one, not the one that you mentioned earlier, like $10,000.
I
But
have not looked since then, so I just don't know. There probably is some. But again, like, you know, I don't, right now the situation is like economy is kind of weird, but like in 2010s, there, like at least in the US, there was no shortage of people with money who wanted to, invest into something that's gonna become the next Facebook. And we had like all these crazy seed rounds for these companies and like these insane valuations, and you look at what they're doing, you're like, who the fuck invests in that? That's moronic, right? That doesn't make any sense. But they're like, oh, we're gonna build something that's gonna compete with Instagram, and it's like, there's already Instagram, like, what are you doing? Like, you're being valuated for like $1 billion to build the next competitor to Instagram, and like 3 months later they're dead. Like, it was a weird time. So, but there are people with money who want to invest into companies, hoping that one of them will make it big. It's kind of like music business, you sign 50 artists and one of them becomes the new Taylor Swift or whatever, and then you make infinite money from your investment, and meanwhile 49 others record a single, or they record an album, maybe have like one hit song, one hit wonder, and never to be heard from again, right? So you're playing, like, investors, they have to play based on the idea that like 99% of it is absolutely going to fail, and they're looking for that one who will make it so big it's going to recoup all of their investments on all the losses they had with everybody else, plus all the losses they have is a nice tax write-off. So it all kind of works out. So like there's
yeah,
always people who are willing to invest their money, and as a founder, if you're a technical founder, you may be spared the duty, but as a non-technical co-founder, your primary job is to schmooze the investors and try to convince them to give you their money or part of their money. Like, the non-technical co-founders spend most of their time, like, if they are, again, like, you really need to understand what your end goal is. But again, I don't know about now, it's been a while, but like in 2010s, the model was have an idea for a startup, build like a good pitch deck, find investment, and then maybe gets like the company gets acquired by somebody and everybody exits with a lot of money. It was a kind of like this wash, rinse, repeat type thing. We're coming up with ideas, we're getting money, we're building it out, we're pushing it to market. If it gets traction, great, maybe somebody will acquire it, or maybe it makes enough money to just make enough money. And if it fails, we try something else, or we pivot 3-4 times. Like, how many companies, they like started as one thing, and then halfway through they realize it doesn't work, but they have this user base, so they like try to pivot to try to like change direction with what they have, and with users that they have. Maybe they were solving problem A and had like, it's kind of weird, like, you build the company, you build the product that solves like problem A, and one of the features solves problem B, and then you realize like 99% of your users are using the feature that solves problem B and nobody gives a crap about problem A, so you like pivot and focus your attention on problem B and start solving that or something like that, right? So but yeah, like the guys that I was with, at least one of them who was kind of like the business development guy, he was trying to figure out ways to find us people with money. And then at some point we talked, it's like, do we really like how far can we take it on our own bootstrapping? Like, because as soon as you get investors, you get strings attached with that, right? Because they get a lot of control over what you're doing. It's like, okay, let's say you're building a recipe for chefs, which is an interesting example because you can kind of play with the numbers. It's like, okay, like how many high-end chefs, how many high-end restaurants are there, let's say like in Toronto or Vancouver? Like there's a fixed amount, not very big one. So you already know, okay, maybe you're working with the audience of like 100 chefs that you can potentially sell your product to in your city. And in that case, if you have a good case to make to them, do you need to get $500,000 worth of investment? Or you can have a meeting once every 3 days and cover all of them in a year by just meeting them face to face or something. Like, I don't know how crazy of an idea is that, but like you could literally like knock on their door and pitch them yourself without hiring a marketing team, right? In this particular case. So you got to understand what your financial end game is, because back then, I don't know about now, but back then 95% of people were there for the big exit, being acquired by somebody or going for an IPO and like making a ton of money that way. Nobody really, out of people that we talk to at the period, because you kind of hang out with people who are in the same kind of boiling pot, you know, everybody's like talking about entrepreneurship and like investments and investors and the valley and this and that and what they're building and how they're pivoting and like how they're going to have that big exit for, you know, $50 million or whatever, or $500 million. And it seemed like very few people were building a product to satisfy someone's actual need. Everybody was building something to have the high-end exit and like call it a day. Or again, go into that wash, rinse, repeat. Like, okay, we exited from this, we made a bunch of money. Now we can ourselves be angel investors and start putting money into all these other startups, hoping that like, it was kind of like the, you know, the snake eating its own tail, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense, but I guess what I was really trying to understand was if there is like a program or like a group of people. I mean, I know of Shark Tank, so this is a TV program. Like there are some group of people who actually do this as a business for themselves, like you said. But I wonder if there's like an available program for just everyone. And I'm asking this question because I noticed, I mean, like in the words of someone that I know of, they say like we're in the era of fast fashion, SaaS, you know. And I'm just thinking about like in this era, like not just building an app that works, but if you want to commercialize it, like what are the things to think about? And I started thinking about like investors, like having like investment, because like even you as a developer, like there is a particular point you get to that it starts to cost you money to have this app running, depending on how you use it.
True,
And
you need to pay for servers at least.
Yeah, like it costs money, you know, and it doesn't, especially if you're not at the point where you're actually making anything. Maybe it's just a pet project for you initially, you know. And haven't done enough research, but I know about like a research R&D budget from like the government every year for stuff like
You're
this.
talking about Shred?
Not sure what it's called, but I just know like there's R&D budgets for stuff. Is it called Shred?
Well, Shred is like a tax incentive where you would submit to them the time you spend doing like what's the word? Like novel research and development. and
Mm.
they give you tax credits based on that. So like the government compensates you, which was, again, it was kind of funny thing. Like around that time when they introduced this whole tax incentive,
Mhm.
there were so many people abusing the living shit out of it because nobody in the government really knew what an R&D expense was. So people would like submit like these ridiculous things and get reimbursed from the government, and eventually they kind of caught up to it, and they made the process like very, very complicated and very convoluted and very, very strict. And I remember even what year was it? But like when I was at Copperleaf, my boss, he basically like spent 2 weeks tallying up everyone's hours and like submitting these massive reports, and he was like just walking around like a zombie because he was like literally doing shred reports like for 2 weeks straight nonstop. It was like the only thing he was doing, and when he was done with it, he was just like, oh my god, I'm so glad it's over. But again, because
Mhm.
it's effectively like free money for the company from the government, the upper management, like the C-suite, basically made everybody do it, and we had to like every week we'd have to submit the hours that we worked on shred related activities, and we have to go to like SAP and like fill out these clunky interfaces like, oh yes, I worked 8 hours today, and I worked 8 hours on Tuesday, and on Wednesday I also worked 8 hours, and then on Thursday, guess what, 8 hours. Oh, and Friday was a stat holiday, so we put 0 there. And it was just this like massive annoying thing where at the end there's going to be like some sort of credit break for the company for like hundreds of thousands of dollars. But in order to have that, you have to actually spend, like, you have to spend millions to get some hundreds of thousands of it back come tax season. So again, it's not like they just give you money. But yeah,
I
they're
mean,
probably.
I think this level is like you already have the company. I'm talking about like research and development. I don't, like I said, my research is not at this level yet, but I just
Mhm.
know of it because I've had like conversations about like people who are into this. And I remember like working in a startup and having conversations like this with like a CEO. I remember, yeah, you know of one. There's the one
Oh
where
yeah,
we met. Yeah, like I
yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah.
we're having a conversation like this, and he was trying to explain to me about how you could actually get some investment from the government to
Right.
kickstart your idea and stuff like this. So that's what I was thinking about. And then I was also thinking about like maybe there could be a system where you don't even need this investment because do you have to pay it back? Like, do you pay back this money if the government gives you money, or like what is the
So
government
with
gaining from this?
the government usually gives grants.
Yeah, that's the word.
They give grants, and there might be some like quasi government the quangos, they might give you like loans on favorable conditions. So it may be structured like part of it is going to be grant that you don't have to repay, and part of it is going to be loan at like some really, really low or 0% that you still have to pay back, or parts of it may be forgiven or something. I honestly don't know, especially this day and age, because I haven't really been in that scene in a decade. So I have no idea what's happening around that. So it's like all of the things that I'm telling you is like at least like 15 years old. Things can be entirely
Yeah,
different now,
yeah.
and I could be just spewing complete nonsense, and people, if they watch, be like, this guy knows nothing, and they would be correct. I literally know very little about it.
Well, it's a discussion, you
But
know.
I can make it sound convincing to
I
some
believe
extent.
you.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's a discussion. I was just thinking about it, and it was on my mind, and I was just wondering if uh, if there are systems like this, because I think we are
There,
getting to a
I
point.
think there are, and if you search for them, there are. But usually also, um, like I remember when my dad and his friends, they wanted to do a startup. It wasn't like a software startup; it was more of a hardware startup.
Mhm.
And there was this sort of provincial government initiative where they would kind of give you like a founder's crash course. It's basically
Mm.
like free classes where they talk about all these different things. So like when I say shit like total addressable market is bits and pieces that I picked up in that class actually, so I guess it worked to some extent.
Fair enough.
Again, I can make it sound convincing, like as if I really know what I'm talking about. Uh, so there's something like that, and what
Okay.
happens usually is like they have like a certain number of slots per every few months, right? Because the program runs for like maybe like 4 weeks, 8 weeks. Like once a week, you come in for a 3 hour class, and
Hmm.
there's like all these other people who are also trying to do the startup, and you kind of practice your pitching and like figuring out your market and like who can you sell to and like how much money you can theoretically make and like all of these things, right? And then you give them a proposal because obviously a lot of people would like to participate, but the limited slots available. So you kind of have to get into that. And if you get into that, you get to learn. And after you're done with it, when you like graduate from it, they might give you some industry connections or they might give you some investor connections or whatever. So it definitely exists. If you search for it, I'm pretty sure you can find it trivially. In terms of like just like angel investors or VCs or venture capital type stuff or incubators, it also exists. These days, who's doing it, I have no idea. Like back in those days when I was TAing at Lighthouse Labs,
Hmm.
Lighthouse Labs was itself like basically a startup, and they were running out of what the hell the company was called, but basically it was like an incubator type stuff, and they had like a huge space, and like
Hmm.
all these different teams were building their products and like having like a shared massive office space, and part of it was dedicated to like the Lighthouse Labs, like the whole web bootcamp thing. So I talked to people there, some of them very successful now, so I guess that worked out for them.
Hmm.
um you know, the guy was there. He built Latergram, which eventually got renamed into Later. It was like a thing to do delayed posts to social networks. I think
Oh,
he started with
scheduling.
Instagram. Yeah, like
Oh,
scheduling in the very, very early days of Instagram, where Instagram itself did not have that feature. You could use Latergram to schedule posts ahead of time. And then they pivoted into like you could schedule posts to release simultaneous, like Instagram, Twitter back then, and like
yeah.
YouTube, whatever.
I've
So
used
I think
later.
yeah, yeah. So I know the guy who
Mm.
he was there like every day building it when I was there teaching all these kids web dev.
Ah, interesting. Well,
Yeah. And
I
I think
guess.
like Coho, the credit card company, they were there as well. So like I know some people who had degrees of varying degrees of success in that scene. So it's not all doom and gloom, I should say. But I
Okay.
just don't know. Like that was 15 or however many years ago. I don't know how it works now. Probably similar, but I don't know.
Okay. Okay. That's good. And also, one thing I also wanted to discuss is like, I feel it's worth mentioning that not because you are a tech person, that does not mean that you can start a business.
Absolutely
And
not. In fact, it's a lot of times I would say it's counterindicated. You need a business co-founder of some kind because they're different different disciplines and different skill
yeah,
sets.
yeah, and that comes to mind because sometimes I've had like, people or like friends or something say things like, "Oh, um, if I have your skill, I'll probably build something and just like, and I'm just like, there is a difference between building something and building a business. A business requires separate skill from knowing how to create classes and methods, so like or building an app. But I wonder what your opinion about this. Do you think this is a how do you say that? Um, a skill that you probably learn along the way, or you think you lose a lot of money learning it along the way?
So I think in that sense, my advice would be to spend as little money as humanly possible. Like when my friends and I were doing this startup thing, for whatever reason, we thought it would be a good idea to pay like $700 a month for like a co-working space. And it's like,
Fantastic.
well, that was very, very early, way before, remote work was such big prominence. But yeah, that was a complete waste of money. I mean, maybe not complete waste of money, but it was money that could have been spent elsewhere. So we should not have done that. And like a lot of people, especially like when they get in, like even Silicon Valley, I believe, like kind of showed it like, oh, you get investor money, you start buying all these expensive, ridiculous shit. Like, let's get everybody freaking $5,000 Herman Miller chair because we just have like a couple of $1 million worth of seed round or whatever. So now we're just spending money on like expensive furniture for the office and like a chef that comes in every day to cook people lunch. It's like, don't do that. We talked about how like the percentages of startups, like most startups fail. And even the guys that I work with, like the thing that kind of got some traction was like the fourth one they tried. So they had the consulting company that was they had recurring revenue from clients who they had like contracts with. And they were using a portion of that money to try all these startup ideas. So they had they could always fall back on that company to keep paying the bills and paying rent and buying food, right? And then it was like the fourth or fifth. Shut up. Sorry, I'm playing around with the voice assistant for my home assistant, and it decided to aggro on me. It's pretty much a guarantee that your first 3 or 4 or 5 attempts will fail of doing startups. It's very, very rare where your first idea takes off, I would say. It's like mathematically improbable. So I think the other thing that kind of separates entrepreneurs from everybody else is that they tend to shrug off that failure and try again. Whereas most people, if they put so much of their heart and soul into something and it fails, they get so demotivated they never want to go through that process again. It's kind of like you kind of the shitty parallel of like being a pickup artist going through 100 rejections before you get on a date to kind of build up, moral immunity to it. So you don't feel as bad when you get rejected. It's kind of the same thing, right? Like you have to fail a bunch, and every time you learn what you did wrong, and eventually, once you kind of cover all different sides of what could potentially go wrong, you can execute on something, keeping all of that in mind, and actually, take it somewhere, provided the idea actually has merit and traction and some legs. But it's more likely, even if your idea is good, you could just like run out of money and like you don't have enough money to pay people, which again, these days, maybe you can play around at it for a year, just paying $200 for a monthly Claude subscription or whatever. So you don't have to pay somebody 6-7K a year, a month to keep building stuff for you.
Wait, Vasili, did you just endorse AI?
No, I'm saying like I can endorse AI for people who want to build a prototype. I'm not endorsing it for myself, at least not yet. But I'm saying like it's so democratized these days that I started having that thought before we like pivoted into something else. Is like these days you can be the business co-founder and you can torture Claude for long enough to come up with something that you can put in front of people that they can actually use. So you might, as a non-technical co-founder, you can try solo the whole thing. It probably is going to be horrible internally, but nobody really knows that, including you yourself, if you're not a technical person.
Yeah.
Right. And then if it gets traction and you get money, then you hire somebody to kind of do it right, in a sense.
Okay.
So that's why these days you can iterate on like 20 different startup ideas in a year, because you can literally vibe code a prototype in a couple of weeks for every single one of them to see what grabs.
Weeks. What, you think this is possible in a couple of weeks?
Well, maybe a month. I don't know. Well, okay. So a friend of mine, he recently
except you don't have anything else to do. that this is the only thing. Maybe I don't
No,
even
no, no,
know
no.
that.
That's not even okay. So, like, let me tell you a story. I hope you wouldn't mind. Basically,
Yeah,
like, do you know a website called Poshmark?
yeah.
It's like you can buy vintage
So
clothes
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah. So what a lot of people do is they basically buy a bunch of stuff from thrift stores and then try to resell it on
Resell.
Poshmark. Yeah. So they killing thrifting, but who cares?
Or they're helping it. I don't know. Anyway, this is not the point. Go on.
Well, thrifting was supposed to be for people without means to like find clothing that is affordable, and now all these hipsters come in and like buy up everything decent and then try to sell it for extra money. So anyway, besides the point. But like his wife doesn't work, so she stays at home with kids and whatnot, and she wanted something to do, so she started doing that, and she kind of had a moderate degree of success with it, especially like during pandemic. And so he was building her some sort of tool to either automate or track certain parts of things. But basically, like, he has a full-time job, so he was kind of vibe coding it after hours, a couple hours here and there, using some kind of AI assisted code. Like, he's a software developer, but he's like a back-end Java network stack. Like, he doesn't know anything about web development. So he kind of delegated all that crap to AI. So he knows how to code, but not in that domain. So for him, AI was kind of doing a lot of heavy lifting. And he built something for her and kind of cleaned it up. And in a couple of months, he put it online. And he said that a couple of people signed up and actually paid for that service because they themselves were basically doing the same thing. So yeah, if you, and he was doing it after hours, doing a full-time job and having like kids at home and like a family and everything. So if you literally have nothing better to do with your time and you can spend like more time during the day for it, you can probably vibe code a prototype in a couple of weeks or a month for a startup idea that you want to see if it gets traction or not. So
Yeah. Yeah,
if
maybe.
you're about that life, you could try 10 ideas in a year, and who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? That's a good place. You know what? I'll keep this in mind. Who knows, Vasily? Maybe.
But you miss 100% of shots you don't take.
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
enough to just think about doing it and never actually doing it.
Well, that's an inspiration, Vasily. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I think it was it's better than thinking about it on your own. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Vasily.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah.
I hope that my ancient knowledge still has at least some degree of relevance. I hope. And if you're thinking about doing something on a side, good luck.
Yeah, everyone is it. Good luck. Even if you don't, you still need good luck. So yeah.
Oh, I
Good
mean,
luck.
having luck helps,
Do you believe in luck though?
I don't have to believe it. Like, I had so many lucky coincidences and things going my way in my life that I can't say anything bad about it lest it's gonna turn its back on me. So I can't say anything.
Knock on the wood.
You know that
So,
meme? It's like, I prefer not to speak. If I
yeah,
speak, I'm in big trouble.
big trouble. Yeah. Jose Mourinho. I know that guy. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you, Vasily.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you, Mo. And everybody, we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you and goodbye.